I won't be able to get through it.
You just find that out.
Sure. So, stand behind the podium. Does this work? Everybody hear me? Perfect. So as my mom mentioned, she wrote a eulogy. So please bear with me as I read it. It's from her point of view. So just remember that as I kind of work through it. So thank you all for being here today. I'd like to share some thoughts and memories of Dad. Engraved on his urn is the Latin term plenum vitam vixit, and when translated means he lived a full life. I don't know much about Dad's childhood, as he never shared that part of his life with us. We do know that his early years in life were shaped by a significant loss he had at the age of 12. His father died of a heart attack at home, leaving his mother overwrought with grief and struggling to raise a child as a widow. He had a brother and a family of his own. Uncle Chet filled the role of father figure and provided him with the guidance that he needed. That was his introduction to racing homing pigeons, which became a lifelong hobby. Dad was a very intelligent person and very headstrong, which landed him in trouble in junior high and in high school. Boredom overtook him in the classroom, and he was known for being removed, along with his desk, to sit in the hallway, just outside the classroom. The school buildings built in the late 40s had very tall ceilings, hardwood floors, and classroom doors made of solid oak, making them extremely heavy. He was not content to sit and contemplate his behavior. And one day he decided to pull the metal pegs out of the hinges that held the classroom door upright. Once the bell rang, signaling the end of class, the students opened the door, only for it to fall flat on the floor, sounding like a bomb had gone off. That was the end of his education in the public school system here in Maryland, and the beginning of his tenure at McDonough, an all-boys military school located 4 miles down the road from his home. As a scholarship student at McDonough, the institution provided him the structure, discipline, and education to challenge his intellect. He thrived there and was always appreciative of the home away from home it provided. He also met our mom there, whom he eventually married. Mom's brother Tommy was also a McDonough student, and Phyllis was a color guard in the military parades that took place on campus. After graduation, he worked for the telephone company, but aspired to something more. The Air Force was recruiting, guaranteeing a monthly salary and free training, which motivated him to sign up. During his military career, he was trained and served as a navigator in both B-47 bombers and F-4 reconnaissance jets. He spent 9 months fighting in the war in Vietnam, flying over 100 missions in order to serve his country. At the onset of his military career, he married our mom and had 4 children, and for 20 years moved his family from state to state and overseas: Kansas, Missouri, Idaho, Maryland, Colorado, Arizona, and of course West Germany. My first childhood memories were of our stay in Missouri, when Dad was attending the University of Missouri in Columbia, earning his bachelor's degree in science and in electrical engineering, which he accomplished in 3 years. We lived on a farm out in the middle of nowhere, and there were only cows, ducks, chickens, and a mean rooster, and 2 really mean Shetland ponies that belonged to Debbie and Michelle.
Oh, fun, blame Mom.
I do recall Dad getting bit really hard by one of them, named Ginger. She wanted the grain in the feed of that bucket, and he wasn't giving it to her fast enough. He was so mad that he smacked the pony in the head with the metal bucket, leaving a huge indentation in it. The pony sustained no injury, but the raised red mark on Dad's arm lasted for quite some time. During Easter one year, Dad got all 4 kids their own baby chick to watch hatch out of the egg and raise them to adulthood. Amazingly enough, each one of them hatched was a different color: green, blue, orange, and pink. I don't think injecting dye and developing chick eggs is allowed anymore these days, but we did learn about imprinting. Those baby chicks followed us everywhere we went, and as they lost their pin feathers, the dye disappeared as well. We also learned the consequences of not putting the door down to the chicken coop in the evenings per Dad's instructions, as the fox would get in there and attack. Colorado and Arizona provided Dad the opportunity to enjoy the great outdoors, which is also a passion of mine. We went camping and fishing in the Colorado Rockies and beyond, exploring the national parks and providing us with a healthy respect and appreciation for nature. There was, however, one piece of advice he gave us that didn't go over very well. Our trip to Yellowstone National Park introduced us to black bears and how big and dangerous they were. He told us that if a bear were to chase us, then to climb up the nearest tree to escape. On our second day there, we witnessed a bear scaling a tree at breakneck speed to escape the crunch of tourist ogling him. After that, the revised advice was not to leave the marked trails and to stay in the group. He also taught us to fish, especially rainbow trout, which were plentiful in the rivers and lakes out west. He taught us the patience that it took, the skill of baiting the hook, the right flick of the wrist to cast the rod, and the slight tug needed to set the fish on the hook, and to never give up trying to get the really big ones in the deep pools at the base of the waterfalls. Dad chose to continue his education and get a graduate degree, all paid for by the military. We moved to Tucson so that he could attend the University of Arizona, and he earned an MBA. While he attended school, our family continued the tradition of camping almost every weekend, and we all learned about the native flora and fauna of the desert. Most of them are poisonous. The military life was a conduit to providing Dad the opportunities to continue with his hobbies and his passions: traveling, antique furniture collecting and refinishing, antique clock collecting, tinkering with cars in general, buying old cars and restoring them, gardening, carpentry. He enjoyed bourbon and beer and spent many weekends either hosting or attending parties with our mom, forging lifelong friendships as well. Above all, the military life provided him the opportunity to continue racing homing pigeons. Flying pigeons bridged the cultural divide when we lived in Germany, as this is a sport that originated in Europe and had a strong membership. In spite of our inability to speak the local language, Dad spoke Pigeon German, and that was all that was needed to assimilate in this new foreign country. He found fellow pigeon flyers living down the street in Bischofsheim, where we first lived in Germany, and our entire family was immediately welcomed into theirs. Dad was so revered and respected that a few years after we moved to another part of Germany, the Zimmermans had another child. They named that child Robert after our dad, and he was his godfather, with the dubious distinction of being referred to as Kleine Baba. We lived in a small town outside of Kaiserslautern, and the landlord not only provided housing for a family of 6 to reside in, but the property also had a loft that Dad could use to start flying pigeons. His talents at racing pigeons continued in this small town and was so impressive that members of the Pigeon Racing Club asked him to retire from the military and stay there to continue flying. Dad was known to be a great competitor outside of racing homing pigeons. He almost always won at playing cards or board games, with Monopoly being among his favorite, and he enjoyed every minute of winning. He had a great sense of humor, but was also a notorious tormentor. His hawkish ability to debate an issue was known to all of his children. Conversations around the dinner table were sometimes disrupted by his conservative viewpoints to counterpoint liberal viewpoints, with someone invariably leaving the table in tears before dinner was finished. Post-military life brought him back to Maryland for a career at Westinghouse, a divorce, and a subsequent marriage to Sarah, the love of his life until the day he died. He and Sarah spent the last 37 years together, creating memories, making new friendships, maintaining some old ones, and continuing to raise homing pigeons along the way. They traveled and went on vacations to distant countries, but were also homebodies, puttering around in the garden, making homemade jams, raising chickens and guinea hens, and putting up birdhouses and feeders. Dad spent Father's Day and other holidays with his children and getting to know his grandchildren, and building various types of furniture for them. Upon retirement, his education and MBA served him well, successfully investing his savings, enabling him and Sarah to live comfortably for the last years of their life. As they both aged, they chose to simplify their lives and live in a retirement community. They chose Bradley Creek for its amenities and assistance they needed, they provided as their health declined. It was a wise choice as they lived so far away from immediate family. Dad was not always the model resident while living there. During the COVID-19 lockdown, he was busted on several occasions for leaving the facility to check on his car in the parking garage. A clear breach of protocol to prevent the spread of the virus. He was fussed at by the dining hall staff for pilfering ice cubes out of their machine for his bourbon, as his happy hour coincided with their busiest times of the day. It has been said, a life can best be measured by the ways you extend yourself, moving beyond your immediate existence and living for other people. Dad exemplified this by the way he lived his twilight years, especially at Bradley Creek. He not only worked a room, he worked everybody that had an impact on his and Sarah's well-being. He forged relationships with the nursing staff, custodial staff, housekeeping staff, and front office with great humor and positive energy, and never became crotchety with old age. Even as his health began to fail and his physical pain increased, he still had the enthusiasm to live. When he was brought home to Bradley Creek during his last days, it was evident that he was deemed the unofficial mayor of the facility. The parade of people that came to say goodbye to him was remarkable. Beyond that, and above all, he was loved for his wisdom, his gratitude, and interest in others. His combination of friendships, optimism, and energy were the foundation of how he lived, and I hope to emulate that. When I think of him, he makes me smile. He lived a full life. I will miss him, but will continue to value the lessons and memories we made along the way.